The MotoGP Esport Championship roared back into life with two dramatic races at the season opening round at the Italian Grand Prix. For the 6th year in succession, the Global Series pits the fastest gamers from around the world against each other, with this being the biggest season ever. 10 races, 5 rounds coming up over 2022. The opening win of the season went the way of our 2020 king, Adrian. Before then, we headed to Mugello for race 2 of 2022.
Yeah, it was a cracking opening round. We had plenty of action and plenty of stars. Even some joined us in the commentary box there. You saw Maverick Vinales and briefly as well Cameron Beaubier. But in Mugello, the action roared on. We had a titanic battle. The three-time king, Trastevere, going up against the wild child that steps in to the factory Ducati seat, Piero Ricciuti, all the way to the line. It was, in the end, going the way of Trastevere. And it lines us up for a cracking evening tonight for round 2.
Only 2 points split our men at the top of the championship, with the reigning 3-time defending champion Trast taking the first blood in 2022. Good evening, hello and welcome along to round 2 of the MotoGP Esport Championship. Races 3 and 4 of the Global Series will be getting underway tonight, and we're heading to 2 brand new circuits on the Esport calendar. The legendary Le Mans and the mythical Assen hosting our 2 events this evening. It's Jack Appleyard and Jack Ghost with you as always to talk you through tonight's action.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be a good one this here tonight, Jack. As Jack has already mentioned, 2 circuits that we've not been to before in the Global Series. Le Mans and Assen are certainly going to be proved to be tricky ones on the addition to the calendar. We've seen already in free practice that some surprising names have popped up, and qualifying also. You'll see those grids as we head into the action a little bit later on. But really, Jack, it's kind of we need to look at the championship standings. Oh, sorry, before we look at the championship standings, we also need to introduce our gamers because, as we know, there's been lots of movers and shakers, new faces this year in 2022 as well. So it may as well recap who we've got on the lineup.
Absolutely. Let's take a look then at our 12 gamers fighting to be crowned the 2022 Esport World Champion. Starting off with our rookies, the first of which is Tatigo, representing Indonesian Gresini Racing. Spada Longo is here for VR46 as the Doctor flies the flag in eSport for the very first time. And Vindex finally gets his opportunity in the Global Series. The Italian rides with RNF Yamaha.
Davide Galigna is on the Aprilia this year and has been very solid indeed throughout the first series and also practiced for the second night tonight. Dark Bright is on the Tech 3 KTM once again. Watch out for him. He's a dark horse this year. And then this man, Piero Ricciuti, the wild child from last season, stepping up to the factory Ducati seat. He had a very strong opening Global Series round indeed.
Jack Hammer represents the factory KTM racing team. Keep an eye on the Brit. He's been fast in pre-season. Mr. TFTW gets the promotion up to the Prima Pramac racing squad, and Christian MM17, a multiple race winner, third in 19 and 20. The LCR man is certainly up for the fight.
And so to the big 3 then, Andrea Severi, the 2019 champ. His debut with Suzuki went very, very well. Adrian, he has a little bit of work to do on his second season with Repsol Honda, but I'm sure he will bounce back. But this man, Trastevere, the 3-time king, looking to make it 4. That is all the gamers that we've got for you, the 12 runners and riders, and certainly tonight it is going to be blockbuster action indeed.
It certainly is. Before we get underway then with the racing, let's take a look at how the championship looks ahead of our third and fourth races, of 2022. 2 races in the books already, and this is how the championship looks. As we said, 2 points separating Trast and Severi at the top of the table, with Adrian only 6 points adrift. The wild child, Piero Ricciuti, 4th for the moment, 10 points adrift of Trast, with Jack Hammer, Christian, Vindex, Spadalongo, Mr. T, Dark Bright, Davide Galigna and Tatigo rounding out our Global Series championship picture after round 1 of 5. So still a long way to go, and we should mention as well, in terms of the championship and points, a slight change for 2022. Our virtual events that we're holding in here in Barcelona rather than on site alongside a Grand Prix will qualify for half points. So if Trast, or whoever wins our opening race of the evening, 12.5 points up for grab rather than the usual 25, which means it's going to be even tighter at the top. It also means it's going to create difficult maths for myself and Jack because we've got half points in the mix. Right, first race of the evening is coming to you from Le Mans. Let's take a look at what you need to be keeping your eye on at the legendary French circuit.
So here we go then, race 3 for the 2022 Global Series, and we're going to France. We're heading to Le Mans. We've already been there in real life in MotoGP this season, but now it is time for the Global Series to head there. As you can see, it's certainly going to be a good one. Dry conditions in Le Mans, that is always a welcome thing, and you can see there from the rules, the big things are balanced performance and also tyre and fuel consumption to note, proportionate and the balanced performance on, as we do say. So no advantage for anyone on different machinery. Le Mans then 4.1 kilometres or 2.6 miles. Depending on where you're from, with 9 right turns and slightly fewer left turns, 5 left turns, but they certainly are going to be torturous for the rear tyres, so certainly watch out for that. Overtaking hotspots really well, you got to look down maybe into turn 8 at Garage there, and then also coming all the way down into the final sector, record them on. We've seen a few people pull off some special moves there in the past, and that really is going to be the key point that you need to look at for Le Mans.
As we mentioned, the first time that Le Mans is hosting an eSport race, so there's no form book to look at. It really is anybody's guess who's going to be competing at the top. Not much longer to wait, because without further ado, let's get the action kicked off and go racing for the first time in eSport history at Le Mans. Welcome to the legendary Le Mans circuit then. Race 3 of the Global Series about to get underway. And ahead of the race action, let's just bring you up to speed with how the grid looks. Back-to-back pole positions go in the way of Suzuki's Andrea Severi. The man second in the championship will fire from pole. He'll be joined on the front row by Christian MM17 and the 3-time champion Trast. Row 2 of the grid is Jack Hammer, Adrian and Piero Ricciuti. And Jack, those are the 6 names that we've been keeping a close eye on. Those are the 6 names that they have been competing at the sharp end throughout the vast majority of 2022 so far. Yeah,
they really are. They're the 6 big hitters. And in past years, you maybe say there was a big 4, maybe even a big 5 last year with Piero Ricciuti. But Jack Hammer on the KTM in his second season in the Global Series really has joined that group of elite, as we are seeing from his qualifying performances and also his podiums last time out. But I believe we're ready to go racing. So here is the grid then for race 3. Andrea Severi on the front row, and look at that, just alongside him, Christian MM17 is going to be a little bit of a wild child this year himself on the LCR Honda, with Trast Severi, the 3-time king, on the front row as well.
Row 2 of the grid, Jack Hammer, the Brit, is only a 10th adrift of the pole time. That's how close it is. Our race 1 winner, Adrian, keep your eye on him. And importantly, this man as well, Piero Ricciuti, the factory Ducati man. He will no doubt be looking to dive bomb 1 or 2 into that opening couple of corners.
Vindex then is in 7th on the grid on the RNF Yamaha. Davide Galini on the Aprilia is alongside him. He's had a solid start to the season so far, and Mr. T goes off from one of his best qualifying performances of the year. Dark Bright then on the Tech 3 KTM, and rounding out the last 2 on the grid, Tati Go on the Grassini Racing Ducati, and the final Ducati that we have here in MotoGPeSport, Spadalongo on the VR46 machine.
All 12 gamers split by only 3/4 of a second. That's how close it is in 2022. Severi will fire from pole position, and we are underway in Le Mans. It looks a good start from the Suzuki man, but Christian MM17 is just going to get the jump, as is Trast as well. But here we go. It's going to be MM17 that has the inside line as we go to the Dunlop chicane for the first time. Trast has been sandwiched there, and it looks as though Adrian and Christian overcutting the Dunlop chicane there. I'm not sure they'll get away with that one. That looks a little bit dubious to me, but look at that for a move from Severi. Around the outside, here comes Ricciuti as well. Goodness gracious me, they are bumping and barging through the first sector at Le Mans, all fighting for track position. There goes Adrian, contact again with Severi, and he just about nudges him out of the way and manages to take second.
What a first couple of corners. That was ridiculous, bumping and barging everywhere. The elbows are well and truly out. Look at that. There's a dive bomb. I'm not sure what happened there to Christian MM17. Maybe he got it a bit squirrely on the brakes, but he's all the way back to 5th. He's relinquished that incredible start that they had, and so too has Adrian. He's dropped down to 3rd as well. So it's Trast has hit the front as we head into the final little chicane before we come down into the final sector here. It looks as though actually now Andrea Severi on the Suzuki is going to have a run down. Is he? No, just tucks in behind Adrian.
Don't worry, he's going to have another look here up Adrian as we go into record him on for the first time. Here we go then, in towards the final corner, the double apex right-hander. It's Trask that leads the way. Adrian there in second, Severi again looking for a way through, but Adrian slams the door shut. Wow, what a dramatic opening lap of eSport action. We've got a crash in the background.
Galenia's gone down.
It's the Aprilia man that's crashed out, so he'll drop to the back of the field. So as we complete the first lap then, Trask leads the way from Adrian, from Severi, from Christian, from Jack Hammer, from Piero Ricciuti, but it's all changed in the background. There was Ricciuti having a big look up the inside. I think he has got the better of Jack Hammer there for fifth, but we'll keep our focus, our attention on this trio at the front. A familiar trio as well, the three men that have had the honour of lifting the eSport trophy throughout our 6-year history. Trask, the three-time champion, Adrian, the 2020 king, and Severi, the 2019 king, all three fighting to be crowned champion once more this year. And so far, it looks as though Trask has got a little bit of a stranglehold over it. That gap is just edging further and further upwards. It was 0.3. It's now half a second as we go down the back straight.
Severi Suzuki was on very good on the brakes there, down into garage there, but it looked as though it just compromised him a little bit. Look at that, he closes in on the brakes again. Just closing in a tiny little bit on Adrian, but it looks as though it's just a contrast of strengths and weaknesses between the two, as that gap really is staying pretty much stable. It looks as though actually just behind, Jack Hammer's really starting to apply the pressure on Christian MM17. Had a little bit of a quiet start, of course. That first lap, he just watched all the chaos in front of him, but now it looks as though Jack Hammer on the KTM is starting to make progress.
He is. He's closed up right onto the rear of Christian, as you said, Jack. There's not a lot between them here as he try and get the perfect drive out of Recordem on the final corner, down towards the Dunlop chicane here. This is super fast. They have to be so brave here, but at the same time extremely precise, because the bike just wants to drift left and left and left, and they have to make sure they pull it back to the right to have the ideal line to then go left and right for the Dunlop chicane. All 12 look to have done that pretty perfectly there. He's had a mistake at the front, Trask. Ever so slightly wide there. I think he's just about got away with it through La Chapelle. His advantage is still upwards of half a second, now up to 0.6, and look at that, unflustered as usual is our three-time champion, the Roman Trastevere.
Yeah, steely concentration there. And a little bit further back in the pack, it looked as well that Andrea Severi made a mistake through La Chapelle. I think he lost the rear just in the middle of the corner, and that has put him firmly in the grasp of Christian NMS17 and Jack Hammer as well. But actually behind them, this kind of front five have really streaked away from Piero Ricciuti. Was not expecting this from Piero Ricciuti. We thought that he'd come surging through the pack, but it looks as though he just hasn't quite got the pace to go with this front five.
Oh, crash for Tatigo. That's a shame for the Indonesian. He's going to drop to the back of the pack, you would imagine. Oh, he's managed just to survive for now. Oh no, there goes Davide Galenia and Mr. T ahead of the unfortunate Indonesian, crashing out on the Rossini machine. Said he was incredibly nervous, as you can imagine, for his Global Series debut under the bright lights at Mugello, and bumper crowds there to watch us on. So that not helping his nerves whatsoever. So I'm sure he'll be a little bit more comfortable in the safety of his own home as we look to the front. Still Trask leading the way. Points perfect so far. Meanwhile, though, I thought Severi was going to be on a charge. Remember, he was our pole man. It was a strong lap that he put in to take that pole position as well, but he's not putting any pressure on Adrian. In fact, he's falling into the clutches of both Christian and Jack Hammer here. The LCR and the KTM men are swarming all over the rear wheel of the factory Suzuki man. A little bit of a mistake there. He ran ever so slightly wide. That is the beauty of Le Mans, though, Jack. You can see, in particular through La Chapelle, through Museum Corner, through Garage Vert here as well, that there are...
Gone a little bit deep there, though.
Oh, I thought he was going to squeeze through. No way through. Just to finish what I was saying off. There's no perfect line, really. You can see lots of guys just playing around, just experimenting with different lines to see if it can help them with a little bit of drive down the short, sharp straights we have there. Bit of a mistake from Christian. That's just allowed some breathing space for now for the Suzuki man as we complete lap number 4 here in Le Mans.
Yeah, Jack Hammer looking to get a little bit busy then behind Christian MM17, certainly applying the pressure. It looks as though he is just starting to feel it as well on the LCR Honda. As you were saying about the lines, Jack, oh, is that gone down? Christian MM17, he's gone down then. Oh. He has cracked under the pressure from Jack Hammer, and that promotes Jack Hammer up to 4th. And actually, Piero Ricciuti, just as we're rolling him out, he has closed that gap up to Jack by half a second or so, and now it is down to half a second. So certainly it seems as though the Ducati man has wound the wick up on that GP22, and he's got it going very nicely indeed here as we're halfway through the race now.
That's a costly error for Christian. We saw him make the mistake through Shimano Buff, just running ever so slightly hot into the left-hander, and then just like with Pecco Bagnaia at Ricordamont through the first right of the two rights, the front end folded, it washed away from beneath him, and now the Spaniard has dropped down to 9th place. And just look at that in terms of the championship. We can't see him there, but that is bad news for his championship hopes. Already 14 points adrift of Trastevere ahead of this one after some disappointing results, in particular at race 1, only 5th place for him. And 9th place here will be disastrous. It's a long way back even at this early stage for Christian. Meanwhile though, let's just have a look at that championship. Trest was 2 points clear at the head of this one from Severi, but he is going to stretch out his championship lead even further if he can continue in the form that he has been. 6.5 points, the advantage as things stand, but that could change in the blink of an eye because Adrian is as close as he has been here. Look at that, he's really starting to close in. Fastest lap of the race to the Repsol Honda man as well as they come across the line.
And again.
Only 0.3 of a second splitting the Italian and the Spaniard. This is game on here in Le Mans.
Yeah, back-to-back 1:27.8 then from Adrian on the Repsol Honda. Trastevere wouldn't have been too far behind that lap time, but importantly, he was slower than the man that took the crown from him in 2020. But certainly this has a very familiar flavour to it. We've seen these two battle toe-to-toe before on many occasions. We haven't really seen it just yet this year. Of course, Adrian had a little bit of a chaotic race in Mugello. I believe he crashed out at turn 1 and finished 9th in the end, all the way there. So he has some work to do in the championship, and as we do say, as you saw in the live championship before, the man that he really needs to get those points over is still in front of him.
This is a good job so far though by Adrian. I'm not sure if he's made just a little bit of a mistake there. The advantage had just doubled up to 0.6, but once again he's been able to close that down to 3/4 of a second on the break. It looks super strong, in particular in this final half a lap. It looks as though at the moment Trast has just got the advantage as he goes through the opening half, but then as soon as we get into this slightly more technical, slightly trickier second half of the lap, Adrian has got the extra prowess under braking and he's able to close that advantage down. Here's the fight for third. Severi has shaken off the attention of Christian after he crashed out, but now he's unfortunately got to worry about Jack Hammer, who's swarming over the rear wheel of the Suzuki man. We come across the line, that's 7 of our 10 laps completed, and let's just run you down where everyone lies at the moment. Trast leads away from Adrian. That's the battle for the lead, the battle for the final place on the podium between these two, Severi and Jack Hammer. 5th, Piero Ricciuti. Vindex is 6th. This is a good ride coming from Spada Longo up to 7th. Good stuff from the Italian rookies so far. Christian has managed to get ahead of Dark Bright to 6th. 8th with Davide Galligna 10th, Mr. T 11th, and Tatigo, after a couple of crashes, I think, flashed up twice on our screen, is down in 12th. But here we are, back for this fight for the final podium place. Still Severi leading the way ahead of Jack Hammer as we go down towards Garage Vert.
Yeah, you've got to say that Jack Hammer at the moment is just biding his time, looking at seeing where he is quicker than Andrea Severi ahead of him on the Suzuki, and where the Suzuki man is quicker than himself. This is one of the areas where it seems that Jack Hammer always closes in on the brakes down into Garage Vert and then getting launched out onto the back straight. We head now into the Shimano Buff, and he's not quite close to this time, although that's a mistake there. That could be it. And he's through on the KTM, so up into third goes Jack Hammer.
That proves just how pivotal being precise, being consistent is in MotoGP Esport. All it takes is one minute error and the man behind will pounce all over it. And there we go, Jack Hammer up to 3rd place. Great move from the Brit as he tries to get himself onto the podium for the 2nd time this year. But it's far from done because here comes Severi. Oh, what a move. He looks up the inside through the Dunlop right and then into the S's. Jack Hammer will have the inside line. There's no way through for Severi. He goes defensive, does the KTM man. And now this fight is going to go all the way down to La Chapelle. Severi up the inside. Has he managed to find a way through? He has, but can he get it stopped? Surely he's going to run wide. Yes, he does. And back through comes Jack Hammer. What a fight this is for 3rd place. Up towards Museum Museum corner now. Once again, Severi on the inside, but he has to just give up the fight on this occasion, settle back in behind the KTM men. But don't worry, this one is going to spark into life once again in just a few moments' time.
Fantastic racing from these two there, and that's just evidence of these ever-changing lines in Le Mans. You go in deep somewhere, you can always cut it back and get the drive out the corner, but then you have to go deep into the next corner. Absolutely brilliant evidence there of some of the stuff we're saying about this Le Mans circuit. As look at this, actually, the gap is just starting to creep under 3 tenths for the first time. As though, actually, to be fair, it looks as though Trastevere through there got it nailed through Shimano Boeuf and picked up a tenth or two on Adrian. But certainly then, we've got a battle for the win and a battle for third. And on Andrea Severi's part, he is not going to want to lose that podium place, because he was the only man last time out at round 1 that was on the podium both times. So the consistency we've seen from Andrea Severi is under attack right now with Jack Hammer up into third.
And he looks as though he's pulling clear as well, is Jack Hammer. Just we can see on the timing screens, it's now half a second his advantage. Good work from the Brit. I think with two laps remaining, he may well have this one in the bag. But as we saw previously, all it takes is one error, one mistake, and Severi will be back in the hunt for third place. Back at the front then. Yeah, that's the gap, that's the gap. That's comfortable for Jack Hammer with 1.5 laps remaining. He's a little bit wide there. They both are. You can see the varying lines, the different tyre markings that have been left through La Chapelle there. You can go high, wide and handsome as long as you eventually bring it back to get the drive up the hill towards Museum Corner.
Here's some replays then of this fantastic battle that we saw down into La Chapelle. Andrea Severi runs it in hot, runs it in wide. Jack Hammer just turns that RC16 tight, holds the inside line, gets it fired up the hill and gets it done. Fantastic stuff then from Jack Hammer, a move that took pretty much 3/4 of a lap.
Yeah, brilliant fight between those two. It was far from clean, you would have to say. Some elbows were out from the pair of them. That's what we like to see. Meanwhile, this fight for victory is yet to spark into life, but Adrian here, as we prepare to get ready for the final lap, is arguably as close as he ever has been, just 1/4 of a second splitting them. This is a great opportunity here for Adrian. 1 lap to go then of Le Mans, and we've definitely got a fight on our hands here for victory. Trast has looked comfortable over the past 2 or 3 laps, but suddenly he's under siege. Adrian all over the rear wheel. Can the Spaniard find a move on this final lap of Le Mans?
Oh, Adrian was really good on the brakes then into the Dunlop chicane, closed up beautifully. But look at that, Trastevere. That's exactly what we're saying. If you go in hot elsewhere, you're going to lose it on the exit, and Trastevere claws back that advantage he needs. We always say that 2 tenths is the magic striking distance, and Adrian is closing in ever so slightly on it, tantalisingly close, but it's just not enough at the minute. Trastevere holding him at arm's length.
How about this for pressure for Trast? He really is having to put all sorts of weight on his shoulders at the moment to be able to hold off the advantages, the gains of Adrian in this final lap. But so far, so good from the Italian. Only a handful of overtaking opportunities to come. This is one of them. In towards Shimano Boeuf. He's not close enough. It's not going to come here.
Strong on the brakes.
He is. He's closing in. He's going to run wide, though. That's it. It's game over. Victory will surely now go the way of Trast. He'll be able to see that he's managed to break Adrian. Pushing so hard was the Repsol Honda man to try and get close enough for a move at the final corner. But a mistake at Shimano Boeuf on the final lap will hand victory to Trast.
Fantastic job then from Trastevere. You saw his eyes flick across to the top left of his screen. He knows he's got that gap. He knows it's the advantage. He will win here in Le Mans.
Brilliant stuff from Trast, a signature wheelie over the line, and it's back-to-back wins in 2022 for the 3-time king. And the final place on the podium does go the way of Jack Hammer. I think he just about made it across the line before he had some sort of a crash there. So podium does go, I'm pretty sure, to Jack Hammer for the 2nd time this year. A brilliant ride from the Brit to chase down and pass Severi, who will be frustrated to not be on the podium the first time this year that he's not tasted podium success. Brilliant rides all through the field, but it's Trast that's dominant in Le Mans for his 2nd win of the year.
Yeah, fantastic job then from Trastevere. Once again, establishing himself as the man to beat here in the MotoGP Esport Global Series. There it is, official results confirmed. Jack Hammer does hang on for his 2nd podium of the season, ahead of Andrea Severi in 4th, with Piero Ricciuti and Bindex in 5th. Good stuff from those top 6.
Certainly is. Christian MM17, a crash at Ricardamont costs him dearly, down in 7th. That right 8th. Davide Galigne in 9th. Spadalongo 10th. Mr. T in 11th. and our final man will be Tatigo in 12th. So in the end, it was a second that split them, which means that Trast extends out his championship lead. Now 8 points splitting him and Severi, with Adrian just half a point back on the Suzuki man in third. Jack Hammer 15.5 adrift in fourth, with Ricciuti 17 back in fifth, and Christian now 22 points back in sixth place. Vindex, Spadalongo, Mr. T, Dark Bright, Tatigo and Davide Galina is your championship picture after our third race out of 10 in 2022.
So cracking job then from Trastevere, really. When the pressure's on the line, he is the man that always somehow seems to never crack underneath it. Certainly fantastic job we saw there. I mean, the amount of pressure he was under from Adrian, a world champion in himself, and he didn't even flinch once, did he?
He did not. That's why he's a champion. So let's hear from our three-time king, the winner of race 3 in the Global Series, Trast. Many congratulations. Back-to-back victories in the Global Series means your championship lead has stretched out now to 8 points. You must be delighted with that one. Give us your thoughts on the race, please.
Hi to everybody, guys. Thank you. Yes, it was an incredible race. Adrian was very fast, and I had him at 9 tenths, 8 tenths, but we had more or less the same pace, but stay in front, it's very difficult. More to have Adrian behind. And he closed the gap at 2 tenths, 3 tenths in the last laps. And wow, it was crazy to remain in the focus. It was very difficult to don't do any mistakes here in this track. It's very difficult. You must be precise and calm. And I enjoyed a lot. The start of the race was crazy. The start, and behind the next to the other bike, it was crazy. But I want to see now again the race there. Now focus for the next one, sure. But I'm very happy to bring home this result for Yamaha, for the sponsor, for the fan. So thank you guys, and wow, see you in the next one.
Yeah, we'll see you there in the next one, certainly, Trastevere. Congratulations for the win, and good luck for Assen coming up very shortly indeed. You can see there on the screen then the highlights, and it was indeed that move on lap 1 at Garage Vert, where Trastevere went from third to first. That was the key moment in the race. But later on, as he said, the pressure, the gap coming down all the time, that was a titanic effort from Adrian, but in the end, just not enough after this mistake into Garage there.
Shimano Burr.
Shimano Burr.
There we go. It was, yeah, a costly error in the end by Adrian, but Trast spoke about how close it was at the start. Even I didn't fully realise just how close it was. He was down in 5th at one point, but somehow on that opening half lap managed to squeeze his way through to lead the race, and ever since then he didn't look back. A brilliant opening race of the night here at round 2 of the Global Series. A fantastic opening lap, and don't forget you can check out all of the highlights if you joined us halfway through on YouTube at the end of the show. You certainly want to check out that opening lap. It was spicy. Right, Trastevere has just spoken about the need to be precise, the need to be as accurate as possible at Le Mans. Well, you need to do exactly the same at our next destination, a place that you're going to be very familiar with because we were just racing there in real life a couple of days ago. It's time to go to the TT Circuit Assen for race 4 of the Global Series. Let's take a look at everything that you need to know ahead of our final race of the evening.
So Assen then, we head to the Cathedral of Speed for race 4 of the 2022 Global Series. Assen really is an absolute classic, loved by riders and fans alike. You can see there all the important info that you need to know. Dry conditions, lovely. That is what we want to see. Balanced performance and tyre and fuel consumption, as always, are the real 2 important ones to watch. But also penalties on strict. We saw a couple of track limits warnings there for some of our riders. They're going to have to be careful of that around Assen because it's a narrow, tight and twisty track, 4.5 kilometres, 12 right turns and a few left turns, only 6 of them, but certainly no less important indeed. Some of the overtaking hot spots, well, turn 1's a pretty good place as well. We see plenty of action at turn 5 too. And then all throughout the rest of the lap, sweeping curving corners. You're going to see them run all the way down to the Timmer chicane. That final chicane there, that is going to be a do-or-die move on the final lap. You can guarantee there will be some action there.
Certainly will be. How many times down the years have we seen Grand Prix being decided at the Timmer chicane? So much history, so much legendary action at the TT circuit. Assen, of course, the only venue to have hosted a Grand Prix pretty much, apart from 1 year, COVID, unfortunately, bringing that one to an end on the calendar for the full 74-year history of Grand Prix racing. And now another chapter is about to start at Assen as the Cathedral of Speed hosts a MotoGP Esport race for the very first time. I can't wait for this one, Jack. Let's go racing at Assen.
So here we go then for Assen. It's certainly going to be a good one. Of course, qualifying took place yesterday afternoon, and it really was a tight one, you got to say. Let me just run you through some of these gaps. I won't tell you who's on pole position just yet, but the top 4 were covered by 66 thousandths of a second.
Incredible.
That is insane.
It really is. And the men that qualified 2nd, 3rd and 4th, get this, split by just 1 thousandth of a second. The men 3rd and 4th on the grid set exactly the same lap time, with the 2nd fastest lap, meaning that one of them will start on the outside of row 1 and one of them will front row 2. It was tight in Le Mans. Well, it's even tighter at Assen. I'm really looking forward to this one. We saw just 1 week ago, arguably the best race day of the season.
Yep.
Moto3, Moto2 and MotoGP delivering the goods. In particular in MotoGP, as we saw championship contenders collide. Will we see the same in MotoGP Esport? I certainly think we could see a little bit of drama unfold here. I think that this could be one of the races we look back on at the end of the season and go, that is where the momentum changed. That is where the championship swung in someone's favour.
Yeah, it definitely is, and if it's going to swing in anyone's favour, from looking at the grid, the man that starts on pole position, a little bit of a teaser for you here as we load up to view our grid. It is Adrian, the man that just lost out in that first race of the evening here at Global Series Round 2. He lines up on pole position ahead of the man that won the opening race here. So certainly a switch of roles, and it could well prove to be a vital one.
Here's the front row of the grid then. Adrian on pole for the 2nd time in 2022 with his arch nemesis Trast alongside him in 2nd. Severi looking to bounce back after missing out on the podium at Le Mans.
Star-studded front row then, followed up by an equally star-studded 2nd row. Jack Hammer, who's had really good rides in all 3 races so far. He lines up 4th. And Vindex, cracking qualifying from him. He was actually on provisional pole with just a handful of minutes to go. And Christian MM17 is in 6th.
Piero Ricciuti, a disappointing 7th on the grids, but he always rocks up on race day, full of energy. Dark Bright, his compatriot there in 8th. And best qualifying of the year for Tatigo as well, the Indonesian on row 3.
Yeah, good job. Watch out for Davide Galini on the Aprilia. Hopefully he doesn't have any early race crashes this time around. Mr. TFTW's 11th. And rounding us out, it is Spadalonga on the VR46 Racing Ducati.
So here we go then, it's our top 3 in the championship on the front row of the grid. They're split by 8.5 points in the standings ahead of this one. It's Adrian that'll fire from pole position, and we are underway for the first time in Assen. It's only a short, sharp burst down to the opening corner, but it looks as though Adrian has got the job done. He will take the whole shot with Trast settling into 2nd, and that's Vindex that goes down. What a shame for the RNF Yamaha man. I was just about to say he'd made a great start after a brilliant qualifying, but it's all ended in despair for the Italian. Crashes out and drops to the back of the field.
Yeah, massive shame then for Vindex. He was sweeping around the outside at turn 1, and as we do know, if you're on the outside, you are going to be at exposure to any sort of chaos going on. Looks as though Spadalonga's also had a crash, so that's 3 that have already crashed on the first lap. But as we go then, it's actually holding stations from the grid for once in MotoGP Esport. Adrian Trastaveri and Andrea Severi, it's all of those 3 at the front, just as they were on the grid.
Tatigo has got himself a long lap penalty. I would imagine maybe he has had a role to play in one of the 3 crashes we saw in that opening quarter of the lap here. Vindex went down of his own accord, but then we didn't see in the background both Spadalonga and Mr. T crashed out, so I wonder if Tatigo's long lap penalty is for having some sort of a hand in those incidents. He's got 3 laps to take that. At the front, though, no such issues for Adrian at the moment. He leads the way, 2 tenths clear of Trast.
So here we go then, clicking gears all the way through one of the most brilliant sections of racetrack you will find anywhere in the world. Coming down now into the Gertzimer chicane for the first time to round out lap 1. Adrian has company in the form of Trastevere, although it looks as though he's absolutely nailed the chicane there. Opened up a superb gap. Looks as though it's going to be about 4 attempts across the line for lap 1.
Brilliant drive out the Gertzimer chicane for the first time from Adrian there. Just look at the way he punched clear of everyone behind him. Brilliant stuff from the Repsol Honda man. If he can line it up and get it onto the fat part of the tyre as good as he did there on the next 9 times around through the Gertzimer chicane, then I don't think anyone is going to stand a chance of getting him into the opening corner. But here comes Trast, starting to close back in through the slowest part of the circuit there of Struben, and now into one of the fastest parts, Ruskenhoek, the right-hander, and then they'll flick left before then heading down towards Steckenwald. This is what we mean by you have to be so precise at Assen. Just look how narrow it is here, especially as we head through now into this fastest part of the circuit. On the run down towards the bolts, the 90-degree left-hander, a good overtaking opportunity here if you can get a good run. And then now into the 2 rights of Manderveen and Duikersloot. Here's the first one. You'll flick it right, just let it run wide as you can without going on to track limits. A mistake there from Ricciuti, giving an opportunity for Jackhammer to close in, but no way through. And let's stay on board here with Jackhammer, because this is what Assen is all about. They flick right, they flick left through Hogerheide, now into Ramshoek, the super fast 4th gear left-hander, and then hard onto the brakes into the Gertzimer chicane. That is signature Assen, iconic Assen. It's great to see it finally taking top billing on the MotoGP eSport calendar.
Yeah, one of the best tracks in the world. Looks like Mr. T, we've had a little bit of technical issues there with his internet. He has left this race then, but Jackhammer once again putting pressure on those ahead of him. He hasn't had the best starts because he hasn't had the best qualifying in the world, but as we see in the race, as soon as it comes race time, that was going to be close. I thought he was going to sneak up the inside of Piero Ricciuti there, but no, maybe he'll do it coming out of Struben now as we fire down through the Weinschlang then. This is clicking gears all the way, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and up to 6th. They'll throw it in the right. This is one of the bravest corners there is. Look at that all the way through there. That is quite something. And it looks as though Jackhammer, I tell you what, he might just be setting this up for a cheeky move if he can get the drive out here, cut it tight on the apex. Does that lovely. Has he got the drive now? It may well have. The KTM man, ends the outbreak, the Ducati? No, he doesn't. Just hold station for now.
But he's swarming over the rear wheel, right and then left. He's desperate to find a way through on Ricciuti, but so far the defence from the Bologna Bullet is quite superb at the moment. He'd find himself quite happily settling into an Italian back 3 alongside Bonucci and Chiellini with defending like this. Great stuff from Ricciuti.
So once again then, we're seeing that at the minute, it's just Adrian and Trastevere with that pace that no one else seems to be able to live with at the moment. Andrea Severi, that gap has opened up a tiny little bit on this lap. A 10.42 here, but that is all you need in MotoGP eSport to be comfortable. And speaking of a 10.42, that is far less than a 10.42. Does he get in this time down into turn 1? No, he does not. So Jackhammer, once again, his efforts thwarted by Piero Ricciuti.
He's really trying here, his Jackhammer. He's going to have another look, surely, as we head towards Struben. Can he try and line it up here, take an outside line through Osnabrücken before the dive back? No, he can't. Good defensive work once again from Ricciuti, holding off the Brit in that fight for a place inside the top 5. At the front, though, so far, so good. Plain sailing for Adrian.
Oh,
he's
here we
6
go.
tenths clear. Here's the move then. Oh, he's on the grass on the inside. What a brave place to barge your way through that is. He was pushed wide, was Ricciuti, after the move from Jackhammer. Both of them, I think, are well over track limits. Jackhammer tasting a little bit of the grass on the inside. They do sometimes host MXGP rounds here at Assen, and he's decided to go grass tracking, dirt tracking himself was Jackhammer. He's on the right machinery for doing that, isn't he, on the KTM? Good stuff. But Ricciuti managed to find a way back through. Both of them handed a track limits warning as a result of that. I'm sure there'll be a word in the ear coming as well if they continue to sort of stretch the limits of the track like that in the future.
Through Ruskenhoek then, not going to be close enough this time down into the Gertzimer chicane, but it does look as though Jackhammer, that impatience is certainly starting to bubble over. Definitely gone over track limits again there, and he has just received the track limits warning as well. Oh, look at that. Track limits warning then for Trast in second place. He's actually dropped now to 9 tenths behind Adrian, so it looks as though Adrian on the Honda is just a bit too strong here in race 2 at Assen.
Yeah, we're only 5 laps into this 10-lap event, halfway through. But already, Adrian looks as though he's got this one in the bag. Of course, there's a long way to go. Anything could and probably will happen, actually, as we've become accustomed to in MotoGPeSport. But so far, Adrian really unflappable as he looks to get himself up onto the top step of the podium for the second time this year. Here is Christian. You can see he's got a little bit of company in the background there. I imagine that is the third Montenegro brother. Of course, Christian and Adrian, the men first and fourth in this one, are brothers. If you can...
Looks as though it's just the official fan club, Jack.
It is. It's the Montenegro fan club in the background there. He's nervous as well because he's biting his fingernails. As we all are. He's on edge watching brother Christian fight it out here, and you can tell why, because this fight for third place is hotting up. In fact, you would say the fight for second place is hotting up because Trastevere is falling into the clutches here of both Severi and Christian as we head towards the Gate Timmer chicane, hard onto the brakes, and we look forwards. Yeah, look at that. Trastevere is definitely just falling into the clutches of these two. We could have ourselves a bit of a ding-dong for second place, and if Trast does start to drop a little bit further backwards, well, that will certainly tighten it up at the top of the championship.
I was just about to say there, looked as though Christian MM17 did go across track limits coming through the Gate Timmer chicane, and he definitely did, because our race direction were quick on it. The hawky, beady eyes, they saw him very, very quickly indeed. Look at the gap at the front here now. 1.1, almost 1.2 seconds. This is an absolute demolition job from Adrian. Did not expect him to pull away like this. Trastevere is usually one of the quickest in race trim, and Adrian has just made him look a bit silly here in this one. Quite incredible, really. But Adrian and Trastevere, as we do say, if these two finish 1 and 2 like this, it's certainly not going to be too much of a bother which way round they are, because it's just good for their championship here, particularly with it only being half points. If you lose out some points to the man ahead of you, it's not as bad as on a regular weekend.
You could see from the helicopter shot there just a few moments ago the size of Adrian's advantage, and to put that into a little bit of context as well, of the opening 3 races we've had so far, race 1 and race 2 were split by just 1/4 of a second. That was the race winning margin, and then once again it was just over half a second, I believe, over the line, but it was pretty close given the fact that Adrian made a mistake which allowed Trast to have that advantage. We've not had domination like this at all so far in 2022. This is a statement of intent so far coming from Adrian.
Now, we've come across the line there. We're on to lap 7. 4 laps to go here, and there's certainly already a little bit of tyre wear, as you can see there, is on board with Trastevere. The right-hand side of that Michelin rear slick certainly starting to suffer a little bit of torture at the hands of the Yamaha, and will that pay a very big fortune to the man behind him coming into the last couple of laps? But I tell you what, the man behind him has to worry about the man behind him, because Christian MM17, he was close before, but now he's even closer. He can smell his breath almost. He's that close. 1/4 of a second off then as we go through the Weinschlag, one of the fastest sections of the track, all the way on the outside curb as they go in. Just a slight sneaky line there on the inside. Obviously, these guys, they find every sneaky line possible to get around our race direction. Looks like Christian MM17 has got one of those just hidden up his sleeve as well.
We've been doing this long enough, but it still unnerves me looking at this front camera. You often feel like the bike, especially when you get to the fast parts of a track, is just going to burst through the screen they enter with so much corner speed. Well, keep an eye on this one then. That's a 3rd track limits warning for Trastevere. We've got 3 laps remaining, another 2, and he'll have himself a long lap penalty. So Trast has to be super careful here. A long lap penalty normally costs you between 2 and 4 seconds. If he gets one of them, we could see him drop outside of the top 5, which would have huge implications for the championship. He has to be so careful now, Trast, and you can see why he's exceeding track limits as often as he is, because he's under all sorts of pressure from Severi.
Yeah, Andrea Severi, they're not happy with missing out on the podium in the first race here in race 2 of the Global Series. The long lap penalty, if indeed he does have to take it later in this race, is just here, turn 3, Ossenbrücken, and it is a long one. It really is. We've often seen them lose 3, 4, maybe even 5 seconds if they can't quite get it nailed going through. So certainly Trastevere, if he lost 4 seconds, where would that even put him? He'd be probably in 6th behind Jackhammer, and that would be disastrous for the championship margin that he has at the head at the moment. But Andrea Severi then certainly piling on the pressure. Less than 2/10 the gap as they come down now into one of the fastest parts of the track. Sweeping through here. It's typical Assen. It's so hard to make up that final little gap to the man in front of you because there is a limit here. It's one of those where you can't push it. Fast and flowing is the way around here. You can't be too aggressive.
2 laps remaining of the TT circuit Assen then. This is the E-Dutch TT eSport heading to the Netherlands for the very first time, and so far it has been an astonishing ride from Adrian, our 2020 champion, putting down the biggest marker we've seen in the Global Series yet. 1.5 seconds clear of his closest championship rival, Trast, who we'll be able to see shortly is under mounting pressure from the Italian and the Spaniard. Severi on the Suzuki, Christian on the LCR bike, closing in on our 3-time champion, who's a little bit wide here. Is this an opportunity in the background for Severi? I don't think he's close enough, but that gap is under 2/10 now. 2 laps remaining of Assen, and Trast is under siege here. He has to be careful not to throw away a podium finish, because you would have to say, if he makes one error, not only is he going to see Severi come through, but Christian is queuing up there as well.
Yeah, if the door gets opened, you know that Christian MM17 is going to be prepared to kick it off the hinges. That's how close he was. We even saw him creep into the back of the camera there when they were on board with Andrea Severi. There's the camera shot we want to see. The 2 hunters chasing the hunted for the 2nd position here. But as we know, Trastevere, he is a man that deals well with pressure. Oh, could this be a little move here from Christian MM17? Oh, that's a close one through Steckenval. That's incredibly close. Barging him out of the way. Looks as though Andrea Severi is going to be able to hold off for now. He does, pushes him onto the curb. Get out of here, that's my line.
Great stuff. Both of them not wanting to give an inch to the other, and Severi in the end just about holding on. The front wheel, the side fairing was all rubbing up against him, trying to push him wide, but he was having none of it. And in fact, despite the pair of them coming to blows there, they've not lost that much touch with Trast in front for 2nd as we close in towards starting our final lap of Assen. Victory is surely going to go the way of Adrian. He's over 2 seconds clear now. Brilliance from the Repsol Honda man. Dominance as we've become accustomed to down the years by a Repsol Honda at Assen. Marc Marquez taking victory here on a number of occasions, but the fight for 2nd is the one we're going to be concentrating on. Trast, Severi, Christian, 3 men. They don't go into 2, never mind going into 1, because they're all fighting for 2nd place.
Yeah, they certainly are. And Christian MM17 is certainly going to be extremely keen to stick one over on the 2 men in front of him. Christian, of course, is a veteran in the MotoGP eSport Global Series, but he's never quite reached this fame and stardom that the men ahead of him have. He's never won that championship, even though he's been every bit as fast as them at times, so he'd certainly be keen to sneak through to 2nd place here. But with only half a lap remaining, his time and options are running out.
They certainly are. It looks as though he's just dropped a little bit back off the rear wheel of Severi here. That's a good punch forward from Trast, but Severi manages to close in on the brakes as he go through the bolts now towards Mandeveen and Duikersloot for the final time at the front. Already out of Duikersloot and on his way towards victories. Adrian, comfortable it has been for the Repsol Honda man. He's backed off here in the final lap to make sure that he can bring that Repsol Honda home. It will be victory number 2 of the season for him. But in that fight for 2nd place, who's going to take it as we head towards the gate? Timmy Chicane for the final time. Through the penultimate corner, onto the brakes, into the gate, Timmy Chicane. Severi's not close enough. Christian's not close enough. It will be 2nd for Trast, but today is all about Adrian. What a performance. The biggest winning margin of the year. The most dominant performance of the year. That's how you stake a claim for the MotoGP eSport title. Victory for Adrian ahead of Trast and Severi, who bounces back from disappointment at Le Mans, with Christian, the unfortunate man to miss out, in 4th. That fight that we saw earlier on between Ricciuti and Jackhammer, in the end going the way of the Ducati man. And further down the field, we'll wrap up our points scoring finishes. It looks as though, definitely worth a mention, it was one of the rides of the season for Tatigo in 8th. It certainly was. Good stuff from the Grassini man. Just behind Davide Galigna, Vindex 9, Dark Bright 10, Spadalongo 11th, and an unfortunate DNF for our resident Aussie, Mr. TFTW. 1.3 seconds in the end, the advantage for Adrian, but it was much more simple for that. He was over 2.5 clear as we started the final lap before backing off, pulling a wheelie, making sure that he could celebrate with all of the fans virtually on site at the Netherlands. But look how close it was for that final podium spot. Trask a quarter of a second clear of Severi, who himself was 0.3 of a second ahead of Christian. There we go then, a victory going the way of Adrian, which means it's 2 for 2 in 2022. 2 wins for Adrian, 2 wins for Trastevere. Last year, we of course saw a record-breaking start to the year with 4 different winners in the opening 4 races. But it looks as though we've got a tight title chase between our previous 2 champions. It's Italy versus Spain, it's Yamaha versus Honda, it's Adrian versus Trast, with Adrian closing the gap after that win at Assen. Let's speak with the Spaniard then. Many congratulations, 2nd win of 2022 and the most dominant we've seen this year by a long, long way. You must be delighted with that one. Please give us your thoughts.
Thank you very much. Hello to everyone. My idea is in this race was clear. I know I started from the pole position, so I wanted to do a good start and try to make a gap. Fortunately for me, I could do it, and for me, I did almost the perfect race. So I am very happy with this victory because I could recover some point that I lost in Le Mans, and now a little break to rest, and then again to train hard to the next round. And see you in the next round. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll certainly see you there, Adrian. Cracking performance tonight. Well done indeed. And he's spoken there about the points. Obviously, look at these with the rest of the highlights you have on screen here. Certainly, a lights to flag victory is something we not see very often in MotoGP Esport Global Series. But Adrian, he made it happen while the drama happened behind him.
Yeah, it was brilliant, really. There's no other word to describe it for Adrian.
Wow.
Lights to flag victory. He took the whole shot from pole position and didn't look back from there. And I think the biggest thing we mentioned throughout the race, how important it was, to be precise, to not go over track limits. And we saw lots of people with track limits warning, but if my memory serves me right, we didn't see a single one for Adrian. He really was
Inch
perfect from start to finish. A deserving winner. This was the fight of the race, without doubt. A big move up the inside from Christian, trying to barge Severi out of the way, but the Suzuki man was having none of it. He had the inside line for De Boit that was coming up after that, and luckily he was able to hold off the advantages of the LCR man as he came out of the chicane for the final time. That's how close it was for 2nd, 3rd and 4th, but just look at the advantage at the front from Adrian. A pivotal win in the championship. As we said, it looks like it's going to be the MotoGP classic story of Yamaha versus Honda. We've seen that so many times down the years, and it's good to see we're going to have a 2022 title fight with that same storyline. We spoke about the implications for the championship. Let's take a look before we leave you then at what the state of play is after round 2 of 5 in the Global Series, and now just 6 points separate Trast and Adrian. Trast came into this one 2 points clear, so we will be pleased that he's been able to extend his lead out up to 6 points, but still 6 is absolutely nothing.
Well, I mean, 6 is nothing, and in between those two, nothing has changed. Of course, Trastevere went 1 and 2 this evening at round 2 of the Global Series, and Adrian went 2 and 1. So certainly those two level pegging tonight, and the rest of them, well, it's still pretty close indeed. Andrea Severi just 10 back, but from there, then there is a bit of a sizable gap. Trackhammer now 20.5 points back, and just 1 further behind him is Piero Ricciuti, with Christian MM17 not far behind them either. So certainly the battle for 4th, I beg my pardon, is certainly being won at the minute by Jackhammer, but behind them, the rest of the riders and runners have got a little bit of catching up to do if they want to get into those top 6. Vindex, Spadalongo, Dark Mr. T, Tatigo and Davide Galina rounding us out just on 8 points there. We're certainly all set to go for our final 3 events of the 2022 Global Series.
Yeah, that's 4 out of our 10 races now in the books, with 6 points splitting the top 2 in the championship. Another great evening of e-sport action as we headed to Le Mans and Assen for the very first time. If you've missed any of it, don't worry, you can catch up at MotoGP.com and on MotoGP Esports YouTube channel very shortly after we come off there. My thanks go to Jack Gorse for being my brilliant Robin to my Batman as usual. Here we can all come in. There you go.
Yeah, we'll get
Jack
on the same camera. Fantastic.
Thank you, mate. Pleasure as always. And don't go anywhere, because although there's a summer break coming up, make sure you stay tuned to MotoGP.com and all of MotoGP's social channels over the coming month to make sure that you're ready for the MotoGP season proper to get back underway at Silverstone, and we'll be next with you in about a month and a half as well. Races 5 and 6 of the Global Series, 2 classic circuits, Jerez and the Red Bull Ring. We've seen some real ding-dongs in the eSport Championship down the line, so join us then. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you very much.